What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Creative Center podcast. My name is Andy, and today we have on such a good guest. I'm super excited to share him with you guys. You guys may not know him because he is from across the pond in the United Kingdom. And our guest for entry number 23 of the show is Mr. Radim Malinic. I met Mr. Radim Malinic on social media, and it's safe to say he's become a role model of mine, and I really look up to this guy. He did a double book release in October, and those two book titles are The Mindful Creative and this one that I'm holding right here, Creativity for Sale. Radim sent me this book, and seeing that I had a podcast, we wanted to have him on to release it, and we're trying to get the book in as many people's hands as we possibly can, because this book right here is one of the best books I read this year. Actually, was one of the 3 books featured in my favorite books that I read this year in a review podcast. I think it was just 3 episodes ago. We'll link that in the show notes. But a little bit of bio on Radim before you guys get to know him over the next hour. We talk about the book, we talk about creativity, how to build a creative career, the parallels that all young creatives go through, and how to dip your feet into the business side of creativity. But Radim, a little bit of bio on him. He was born in the Czech Republic, was big into music, was in several bands growing up, as we'll touch on a little bit. And he is the founder and lead creative behind Brand New Studio, which is a creative studio in the United Kingdom. And we'll link all the websites to both Radim's personal website, where you can pick up one of his books, especially this one. It goes through everything you need to start your own creative business. And even if you are starting your own creative business, there's so many helpful tools and resources, from how to market, how to grow, the tools you need, how to network, all these different kinds of things that were in here. And I told him, like, this is a book that I see myself reading every year as a kind of a year in review that I do now that I have the business founded. And it's just a great resource that I've used so many tools in so far. And it's also so beautiful too. Like, just take a look at it. And we talk a little bit about his design process behind the book and, everything that went into it. So without further ado, please welcome to the show, the Creative Journal Podcast, entry number 23, Mr. Radim Malinic. So, Radim, welcome to the show, man. Like I said, I'm super excited to have you here.
Thanks, man. Yeah, sorry, I'm speaking too soon.
Yeah,
Start again.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, you just came out with 2 new books. I have Creativity for Sale right here in front of me. Can you just kind of take us through, your thought process, writing? I want to give you a chance to talk about your career first, and then obviously if that leads to the trajectory of these books. But tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you here.
I mean, how much time have you got? I mean, my career is is super colorful. I mean, unfortunately for your audience, it's not a linear career. It's not something which I didn't wake up at my 4th birthday or whatever and thought, I'll be illustrated for the rest of my life. It was everything. I'm very curious, very inquisitive, and that was very much the direction of my career so far. So I started as an ice hockey player. I wanted to play ice hockey before I could even ice skate, because I'm from Czech Republic originally. I live in London, but I'm originally from Czech Republic. I've lived here for 24 years now. And yeah, ice hockey was what I wanted to do, and I didn't know how to do it, but I wanted to do it. I wanted to be a musician because I just loved in my early teenage years to explore every music genre under the sun, especially the heavy stuff. And couldn't play a music instrument, but I've started a band, we learned it. Stopped liking my bandmates, went into DJing. Again, I didn't really have much music. I didn't have many records, but again, I made it happen. Went into music journalism. I went to start writing about gigs. Wanted to be a music producer. And at that time, I moved to the UK because I moved here in the year 2000. So I'll be 24 years next year. And I just discovered the world of design. I mean, England itself was just enchanting in a way of creativity in that, if that makes sense. It was, the music scene was incredible, the graphic design scene was incredible, art scene, everything. Like the world is just, it's just a different place. So when you go on holiday, everything smells good, sounds good, tastes good, everything tastes different.
Mhm.
And for me, my first 2 years in England were like never-ending holiday. I felt like I was in a movie, and it was really fun. And I got absolutely enamored with graphic design because I was going to these parties and gigs and all sorts of places. Got to be friends with musicians making music on the radio, and I was just like, oh, I can make this stuff. I can make this. So I got I dipped my toe in the world of graphic design, and I haven't stopped since. And the reason why I'm writing books and publishing books now is because when I started in graphic design, I started as a freelancer. I wanted to, like, all of a sudden there were people around me who were graphic designers, because where I was growing up, there was no graphic designers. No one was a graphic designer. There were people doing some graphics, and some people had like Corel Draw and a PC computer. That was like they had Windows and sort of basic package.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it wasn't that enchanting. I mean, I was trying things in my teenage years. I was playing with, the Corel Draw and and Windows,
Uh-huh.
Windows 98 or whatever that would be, and those little steps would be like a founding pieces, like a foundation pieces of me kind of getting into graphic design. So when I lived in the UK, when I moved to the UK,
Mhm.
I had lots of friends who were graphic designers, and I just loved. It was enchanting for me. It was like, oh, right, so you can do this, you can do it from home, you don't have to go to work,
Yeah.
you can have your clients, you can work with musicians directly. And there was the reason why I moved closer to everyone of that kind. And I wanted to get more work, so I started printing little sort of booklets. I used to call them books because that was more, glamorous. So I started making promotional booklets, just with my sort of work, my illustration work, design work, just to get more clients, just to send it out.
Mhm.
And that led me, some 15 years later, I need to get it right. Was it 15, 16 years, 16, right, let's say 16 years later, I started publishing books.
Okay.
So now it's nearly 24 years I've been here, been doing this. And yeah, now I've got 6 books in stores around the world, and it's getting more about the working philosophy and the creative life. It's less about the pictures. I make books for industry, for people who like pictures
Mhm.
rather than words. So I need to make the right product for people to, for me to share my findings and the way I've done it, and kind of give them the inspiration and the encouragement that it's possible to make it, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you do.
Mhm.
Anyone can make their own career, and everyone can build their own creative brand,
Mhm.
and just use basic building blocks again to do it right, to actually to establish yourself. Because I think in a current age, in current day and age, it's you can't plead ignorance. You can't say, oh well, I don't know how to do this, or this is I can't. Like, there's so much information, and you can spend $18 or $20 on my book, and I'll tell you what I did for 20 years
Yeah.
in a way of making my career as an emigre in a different country, in a different language.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great summary, but um well, you went through it all, and that's what I love how you started this book. Which, for those of you guys who don't know, Creativity for Sale, probably one of the most beautiful books like I've ever read. I love the contrast between the single two colors, and yeah, that's why I was really excited to talk to you today, because this has been my soundtrack for the past whatever, since you sent me the audiobook, was the past 2 weeks, and then this just came in the post, like see, post. I said post like that. Yeah, I'm getting um my England on, but it came in the mail like I think it was 3 or 4 days ago, so I haven't had a chance to really dive in and annotate. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to write in this, because I usually annotate books very heavily, as I sent you a picture of my notes. But yeah, I love how you start the book with the analogy of the surfing, and how you're excited, you have this childlike creativity, you're getting ready to start, and that's not too far in my own career. That's not too far away from where I was when I first started. So I'm 22 right now. So I'm still in that, childhood joyous stage, I would class it as. But you start the book as someone who, as I don't know if this is a real anecdote from your life, I think it is, but you get this surfboard, you're like a kid on Christmas morning, and you're ready to go out and hit the waves, and you just get crushed, right? And I can relate to that. You're just getting started. You have all these creative ideas, all this passion, and it can be hard coming out of the gate. So can you talk a little bit um, about your experience, getting started and what that crashing of the wave was like when you first started?
I mean, yeah, I think it's interesting because I'm talking to you pretty much at the age when I was making my, first steps into the
Yeah,
waves.
I remember you said I listened to an interview. You said you were 22 when you started. I was like, man, that's
Yeah. I mean, I think that I mean, you've got people who've been designers for 10 years when they're 22. Like they've been playing and they've been trying and testing. But I think there's something to be said for the late start. I think there's something to.
mm,
I mean, I wasn't exactly focused. I mean, especially at the beginning because I was sort of, still in the new surroundings and exploring things. But I think in a good way, I didn't think like a strategist. There was no courses. There was no Facebook. There was nothing like that. It was just like there's a client, there's a work, there's potentially book in the store. You can buy a book on like letterheads and business cards or whatever, or like a book on Quark Express. So the noise was a lot less. It was more about the pure joy of it, if that makes sense.
right,
Because now, I mean, unfortunately for you, you're in a situation where you've got metrics. Everyone's claims to make millions, and everyone's got subscription business, and everyone seems to be successful, and that's a lot of noise that you have to sort of filter out. Because if you don't know who you want to be, even for the next year or so, it's very hard to focus on who you actually are, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Because I remember buying a book, and I keep talking about this pretty much in every podcast I've done in recent months, is that I bought a book called "It's Not How Good You Are, Is How Good You Want to Be."
hmm
And that's kind of what inspired the second chapter in my book, is like, who do you want to be? How good do you want to be? Where do you want to go? I think I've got it wrong now, but it's just like, what's your plan, kind of thing. Like if you want to do this, you're going to do it properly. Because there was a musician, and there was an English musician called Lemmy from a band called Motorhead, and he said, if you want to be a rock star, be a rock star. Like, do it. Like, no, you can't just sort of be half-hearted about it all and hope for the best.
hmm
If you want to do it, do it. And I was at the beginning, I was kind of skirting on the outside, thinking, I want to be employed. I don't want to try too hard. And I didn't get that drive from, people who were employing me at the beginning, or like who were, with me in the studio. Everyone was happy to sort of stop at 5 o'clock in the evening and go home. But I was like, the work's not done. The work's not good. Like, we can do better. And my benefit of it all at the beginning was that I worked for a company that was producing a lot of work really quickly. It
hmm
was a printing company. So I think in the 3 years, that 1.5 years I was employed, I did about 800 pieces of work.
wow,
Literally flyers, posters, menus. Like, it was all medium to low grade work. Like, no one was expecting to win awards on this.
hmm
But I kind of got to find out what made me happy. I went to sort of explore every possibility, every type of client, every type of conversation. I got to, I had people like literally like nearly trying to pick a fight with me because the business card wasn't good enough. And you're
hmm
like, okay, I don't want to work with those guys. I want to work with these people. And then just, you kind of find yourself like that sort of filter of like, you've distilled it in the funnel. And you go
hmm
like, okay, I have tried all of this, and I like this bit. Maybe this is where my soul is taking me. And I was very happy to, at that time, to be working. After I would literally come home from the employment, and then start, let's say, at 7 o'clock in the evening, and work till 2 o'clock in the morning every night, and just keep working on my portfolio, building my own clientele, building my own meaningful connections with people. Some of them I still work to today. Like, it's kind of finding your true representation of your soul and what you actually want to add to the world, because you don't have to be doing what other people are doing. Now, you can actually stick with what you are and who you are, because if you do it for long enough, the universe will show up and say, we really want this a lot from you. That makes sense.
hmm
So, but initially, This is I'm talking sort of about 3 or 4 years within, my sort of trying. But the reason why I'm talking about my employment, because me going freelance on my own without any expectations, no philosophy, no clients, no portfolio, was that I totally failed. So, I was aiming with my little Mac. I think it was PowerBook G4, I think I had. And it was a beautiful machine. Had a really nice sort of connector, like a colorful connector. And I would literally jump in those waves, be like, hey, here I am. I haven't tried anything. I haven't learned anything. I know very little. I was like all about Adobe Illustrator, making all these vector posters and stuff. And within a few weeks, I've run out of money. I've run out of my overdraft, my bank overdraft ran out, my credit card sort of maxed out. And I was like, maybe I just need to learn a bit more, because I wanted to kind of back learn on the fundamentals, because it's really easy just to say, as I say in the book, like, you can launch your business today. Like, you've got an idea for creative business, let's say what the name is, it's Andy Milligan, creative journal, no, creative services, this is what I'm going to do. So you start your Instagram account, you buy a domain name, if you're clever enough, at least, you start your Behance, whatever, like you've launched. But no one knows about you. No one knows what you stand for. No one knows what you need to do. Like, no one knows what you can help or what's your values. And that's the part which, if you backtrack on it, if you actually say, okay, what do I want to do? What makes me happy? What makes my soul happy? Because things will change. Like, your creative output will change. Your interest might change. I mean, there's definitely a sliver of the industry where, you get your Michael Beiruts and Eric Spiekermans, like the old guys. They feel like very linear designers. They're like, what they're known for is graphic design projects or branding projects or type projects. If you look up their portfolio, for the last 30 years, you know who they are, because they just kind of stuck, what feels to me like, a stuck with one thing, like stuck with very much their philosophy of creating stuff. But we live in the 21st century. Stuff sounds, smells, and tastes good. You can try things. You can mix things. And with my sort of music background, like, the reason why I fell out with my bandmates, because I was a teenager in the 90s. I'm sorry, Andy, but being a teenager in the 90s was the best thing in the world, of the history of the planet, because the music was like, everything was just incredibly exciting. And I literally, my DJ gigs were, about drum and bass, they were about house music, they were about acid jazz, they had down tempo, and everything, and especially with teenagers, like, everything it's just intoxicating.
Yeah.
So that's why I've decided to, kind of pursue it with my sort of creative stuff, because no one says you have to do just posters or just logos or just this and just that. You need to be good at one thing. You need to be really good at, let's say, a designer, or good at layout. Like, you need to master at least one skill so you can add on top of it. You can't be just good at everything and sort of like, be sort of average mid table at all of it. Like, you have to be really good at something, and then you just build your little skills on top. And in my case, I was curious about image making. Like, I loved sort of the mastery of a poster and album cover. And that's kind of what led me from being a graphic designer to having a career as an illustrator for 10 years, because I was just exploring. I was having fun. No one told me to stop. People kept buying, people kept commissioning me and paying me for the work. So I was like, this is great. All the way to the fact where now, for the last, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years, everything kind of went into in a direction where I was starting my own branding agency, where we put focus on visual storytelling. So my interest in music, visuals, illustration, branding, logos, type, layout, all of it is kind of built to this output where we can take someone's narrative or someone's story and we can actually make it visually really interesting. And that kind of is an output of creating a personal brand of creativity that we get known for, and trying our little own stamp on it. So I didn't really do a good job at answering your surfing analogy.
Oh no, that's fine.
But it's I just feel like it's like a mosaic of life. Like you pick up these little pieces and you put them together, and they start making sense.
Yeah, it's like it's one of those things where you can only kind of connect the pieces, kind of looking backwards, And the way you lay out the book, I think, is really powerful too, because everything about it is it's very well designed. Everything about it just speaks simplicity. And in a world where, I mean, you talk a lot. I've heard you speak before about the power of analog books, like in a digital world, and having the way, even like the way you lay it out, it's literally just 9 chapters of one word titles, 2 word titles that succinctly lay out what you're going to talk about. And it's different in the audio version too, because um, you say the word and then you elaborate on kind of what you're diving into. And I think in a world where simplicity is something that we can strive for, and as someone that's had the career and been through all the steps, the fact that you can lay it out so clearly is was really powerful for me to read, especially at this stage in my career. And yeah, I think this is one of the best design books I've ever read. And I've said it with a grain of salt, because you reached out to me. I knew you were going to come on the show, and so I was going to do my very best to be as impartial as I could. And I knew I was reading it ahead of time. This is the first time I've read someone's book that was going to come on the show, and I I loved it so much. I really did. So, what was your
Well,
method? Yeah, I wanted to give
I
you.
just sorry, I just wanted to say thank you because that's a massive compliment. Yeah, because I mean, obviously, it means that it's something that I put into the world. I mean, it's taken a long time to think about it,
Mhm,
and even like you picking up on the one word titles, that's inspired by music. That's literally inspired by song titles.
mhm.
So every time we were making sort of albums, like demos, we're just trying to keep it
Yeah,
very short, and that's the music influence. It's just like, how do you make things cross pollinated, because I knew how little space I had, like when I'm walking up. No, it's all designed to work. And yeah, I'm
uh,
happy to tell you, how it became, how a big complicated mess became a very simple book.
yeah. I see that now looking backwards. I can kind of see the relation between that and the soundtrack. But yeah, I want to talk to you about like how this book reflects your career, and because you talk about all these things, you were in a band, you were making music videos at one point, you were doing illustration, graphic design, layout, all this stuff. I know, especially young people, they're at a stage in the career where a lot of the times they're being told you have to niche down and become an expert. And you kind of just touched on that a little bit. But how do you kind of trust that, trust where your curiosity is taking you and know that's, the right place to go, rather than viewing it as, just distinguishing between curiosity taking you where you should go, and distinguishing between that and distractions. What's kind of your barometer for trusting your instincts like that?
Yeah, the niching stuff. I mean, the niching messaging is very prevalent in the industry right now, and there's a lot of truth and sense in it. Like, you need to niche.
Hmm.
But I was lucky that I niched in the music industry. So I was working with a particular type of clients. I wasn't particularly doing one type of work, but I happened to start with an entertainment and music and that kind of stuff, which was just a happy accident because that's the people I knew, that's the people who gave me work, and that was my lucky sort of niching exercise. But I equally worked with anyone who would, especially at the beginning, anyone who would pay me. I'm like, let's do it. Let's learn stuff. Let's find out, because if you want to niche later, then you're not gonna your world's gonna be very narrow. And to answer the second part of the question is that, the niching should be about what I call in the book the fuel and the feel. Like you go where your fuel takes you, and the fuel is your drive. Like, the reason why I jump in those big Bali waves on my surfboard without being equipped with too much knowledge of how to do 7-foot waves properly, was that I was just excited. I was like, look, there's lots of people in the water surfing, I'll do the same.
Hmm.
And I didn't, and it's just like, okay, you can see lots of people on the internet, online, Instagram, whatever, in community, you see people doing lots of amazing stuff, and you're going to go and give it a go, because like, unlike the Bali waves, you don't have to wipe out, like, you just might fail quietly, or you might not get very far, but at least you can sort of see and emulate other people and see where the fuel is taking you. But it will take you to the place where your feel will actually answer that question. So my feel was in the music. Like I loved music visuals, like everything that was associated with music industry and music scenes. I loved it because it made me feel something.
Mm-hmm.
And we are in the business of making people feel stuff. So I'm creating stuff. So like, for example, your reaction to my book is exactly what I envisage and I hope for, that someone will appreciate it for what it is. You can buy a video course, and that video course speaks to you differently. It packages the information slightly differently. Whereas the reason why I've niched and not doubled down on making books is that it's a direct relationship and direct sort of route and information to people they can cherish. And I remember getting lots of work through different art directors because they couldn't bring themselves to throw my brochures away, my booklets away, because they were beautifully printed and they were nicely made. And it was meaningful. There was something in this. It was just like, if it's someone's PDF in the inbox, you can just delete it. And
Yeah.
I think if there's any advice, like, make physical stuff, whatever that is. Print T-shirts, send T-shirts, and postcards, whatever. Like, have some people to actually to know what you get like from a creative. Like, have something that is here physically. Like it's something that you can't want. Don't give people to actually a reason to keep stuff, because that changes everything. So yeah, it's that discovery. Like you find your little patch, and it can feel so confusing, especially at the beginning, because who do you want to be? How good you want? I mean, we go back to those questions, like, who do you want to be? How good do you want to be? Like, and what lights you up? Like, why do you get up in the morning and go, I want to do this? You know what? I'm going to do this for 8 hours a day, and tomorrow I'm going to do it for 10 hours, and tomorrow I'm going to do it, the day after I'm going to do it for 12 hours, because I'm eternally curious about what I can do with this and how it can make me feel and how I can sort of grow with this. Because you can find a natural end to that phase and go, you know what? I have mastered this for this, let's say, design for music. I want to take it to design for theaters, or design for cinemas, or design for movies. Like, you can actually build that little sort of extension of your careers, because we are most privileged people living on the planet at the moment at this time. Because if you don't like what you're doing, you can do something different tomorrow. It's that easy. Like, you know what? You don't have to take shitty jobs on. You don't have to do things that you don't like. Like, you know what? I can potentially do this with somebody else. And you can do it actively or passively. Like, sometimes you don't like it. Sometimes you just feel that something else takes your fancy. Something else might be more interesting, or something might, you might feel natural calling or natural sort of draw to something different. And for me, like, I've reinvented my career 4 or 5 times, kind of because I was just curious about, like, what's behind that door. I want to open that and I see what's there. And I think that's kind of like, I think that natural. I think I just feel like I just want everyone to know this, because sometimes people go like, I don't like this, and I've got clients like that, and I'm like, change it. Like, you're gonna need one chance at this. Do it right, because
I love that.
it might feel scary for a bit, or like, what, I don't want to work with logo clients anymore. I want to do illustration. I want to do coding or whatever, because I mean, we've got the same equipment. It's just what you do with it. It's that's your choice.
I've spoken to a lot of creative directors and people in creativity just trying to learn. What are the commonalities between the successful people, the people that I look up to, that you know find their way in creativity, and then they make a career out of it. And I've heard you talk in the past about with burnout, and you're always very open and transparent and stuff like that. And I really admire that, because I think the price you pay for creativity is something that isn't talked about very much. And I want to applaud you for bringing that to the forefront. So can you kind of talk about what your internal dialogue is like? And I know in today's day and age, there's social media, there's stuff like that, there's all types of things that aren't ideal, that can be great tools that just aren't ideal for creating the best mental health and stuff like that around creativity. And something I personally struggle with a lot is milestone anxiety. So kind of the concept where if you don't know what that is, it's like you feel like you're always behind your peers, and you are kind of sometimes we're afraid to chase our curiosity because we feel like that might take us off path towards progress and scaling the ladder towards what we deem what might be success. um so can you kind of talk about how you would deal with those thoughts and your experiences with the the negative sides of creative entrepreneurship? Sorry.
Um, what did you call the anxiety?
Milestone anxiety.
Master. Okay, I've never heard of that. I've coined something called the ambitious anxiety. Like,
Okay.
I think it might be the sort of similar thing. It's just like I've got ambition. Like all of a sudden, like
Yeah, that
it
makes sense.
often comes from places where, let's say, I not neglect, but sometimes you only have X amount of hours in a day. So I run
Right.
multiple businesses. Run publishing business and build a
Mhm.
personal brand and that kind of stuff. I'm a parent to two young children. My wife's also self-employed, so it's just like we are, busy people.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you look at someone online, just like like when you describe like the lack of progress, like, okay, I haven't done enough, or I can be doing this, or my online adverts are not working, my content needs, I need to redo my Instagram, I need to redo my Amazon pages, and you just stack yourself up the list up to the hill, and you're like, I feel like a failure, like, because I need to fix a couple of things because I lose the sight and focus of where I am right now. So I might be going to my warm house in a nice clothing, riding a nice bike, having a nice client day. Everything might be absolutely perfect on paper, but my mind literally tells itself like, oh, this is not going really well. This is not right. And even the other day, after 22, 23 years of doing this, I especially managed to publish two books at the same time. I did something that I don't seen anyone do it. Books of selling, the books are selling. I did book signings with Chris Doe and Sagmeister in Toronto, made lots of friends, sold all the books, signed all the books, it was, I mean, everything on paper is incredible, right? And I
Mhm.
woke up one Saturday thinking, the books are not selling this morning on Amazon UK. I feel like a failure. And I literally, there's lots of sort of metrics on Amazon advertising and that kind of stuff. So I mean, there's lots of sort of active parts and active campaigns that I'm putting into visibility. And
Mhm.
just sometimes you just don't have a good day. Sometimes you don't have a good week. So I was like, this is a failure. This is bad. Like, I mean, what am I doing? I'm like, wait a minute. You're in this house with these children, with your wife, with where you live. This is, you always wanted what, obviously you've got what you always wanted, but because you got like a little blip, what you doing? Like, just walk it off, just literally get your focus, like try to tell yourself, it's fine. Like, look at what you've achieved, go and smell the books, so
Mhm.
look at the emails and the messages from people that they liked it, because that's fine. Like, that's just bring yourself back to earth, because no one is immune to it. No one at any stage of a career, you're immune to it, because we have metrics. I can see that, how good I, with especially with Amazon sales, I can see how good we've done. Like, okay, there's good numbers. Sometimes it dips. Sometimes you get incredible stuff. And in the past, I've managed to sell books really, really well because of the book on branding, and that was very popular. And like, we've seeded really well. It's like, so if you go past to your previous successes, I had Amazon bestseller for every day for 5 years. That was always going to end one day. There was always going to be like, look, we've had enough of your books. We're going to buy some other books. And you kind of have to get yourself ready for this. Like, okay, this was really nice,
Yeah.
but one day this will feel very different.
Yeah.
And it's just that realization of like, okay, what is my enough? Because I now know, and I can tell you whatever's happening, in your mind now, or whatever the message is, and it's going to be, ups and down. It's going to be a washing machine for quite a long time until you grow a bit older and go, okay, now I can take a deep breath. I can look back. I can take the good stuff. I will get rid of the stuff that I don't need to take forward. I just and your mind and your body and your resilience grows stronger. Everything's like the noise gets quieter. It gets different because we have burnout because we try too much. I've been doing Mindful Creative, the second book. I've been doing it as my lead talk pretty much every week, twice a week for different institutions, colleges, universities, online and in person. And there's always one question, like, how do I spot when I'm burning out? Like, if we knew that we're burning out, we would stop ourselves from burning out. But we don't know it. We just go because you got targets, and there's different types of like components, ingredients why we burn out, because there's a physical, mental, emotional burnout. Like it's the things that sometimes go too much. And in my opinion, it's like when there's a lack of dopamine, when there's a lack of at checkpoints, because even though I've written a book about burnout, I still sometimes go too far because things take a long time. Like things, these books took best part of a year to make. And I only got a bit of a burnout when they got published, but then I had to start worrying about how to sell those books. Like there's you got so many intertwined sort of activities that I have to find myself in a way thinking, how do I validate this process? Like how do I find out? Like how do I find that sort of element of this is enough. I've done enough. I can celebrate that little win. Like something's good. Like when I was producing audiobooks, like when we nailed, well, let me just say in England, when we nailed the style and the speed of the language, like of the voice. I'm like, okay, I was celebrating, like this is my words, and I've got my friend narrating my books. This is amazing, like you celebrate these things, but then you have to get all the work done. You proofless and stuff. You design a sort of a section of like, okay, that makes really perfect sense. Let's come back to it tomorrow. Like it's always important about having these small checkpoints in every day. Like have a little highlight of the day, because that is what you most likely remember about the day before. Because if the things are just sort of monotonous, sort of conveyor belt of the same with no highlight, you'll most likely remember this, like, okay, this is not fun, this is not good. And then you might be going hell for leather for, let's deliver this project, and you still tweak and you can add, because as a designer, you're never finished. You can always say, oh, I can improve my website, I can improve my this. And, as in the book, I talk about sort of marginal gains and sort of improvements, but that's strategically done. Whereas our minds easily hijack ourselves, and they're like, oh, I can do all of this, I can do all of that. And you never finished. And then you just end up with like, I've been working all day and I've achieved nothing. That's like the famous sort of creative sentence, like I've achieved nothing. But you need to look back and say, you know what, I've done really this, but I've learned something here. It's actually stopping ourselves from just sort of validating ourselves to external factors, and actually look at what we've done for ourselves, because that's what matters. Like what you're creating it for yourself. Obviously, you need to sort of look at yourself and say, I've done enough today. This is good, but we come back tomorrow and celebrate the little wins.
Yeah, I love that, man. Seriously, I love that so much. I did an episode. I called it "Closing the Feedback Loop," and it's kind of the same thing you were just talking about. Is taking, if you don't take conscious time out of your day to point out the things to yourself, because that you've accomplished or that you're proud of, you don't take time to say, good job, Andy. You did this thing. You said you were going to do it, and you reached a finishing point. And if you don't consciously point that stuff out, I agree with you 100%, man. Like it's so easy to just keep on piling on more and more tasks, say more and more, especially when the work seems endless. If you don't take the time to just, like you said, point it out to yourself and then slow down a little bit, be present, have those moments to yourself and find those small wins, then it's like, what are you doing it for, And it's so easy to get lost in the fact that, like you said, there's so much to do. You're checking the book sales, you're checking everything, you're running an agency, family, everything like that. I mean, I can't even imagine. But to hear that you, at your level in your career, still have a lot of the same thoughts that I do regarding your internal dialogue is really refreshing to hear. and I love that.
I,
Thank
I
you.
have to say, I'm so happy for you because you are 20 years behind, but light years ahead in a way of understanding these little things. Because when I was coming through the ranks, it was all about get a job done or get gone. Like it was just more cutthroat. Like no one talked about mental health till about 10 years ago. And you know, you yet to see much the second book, but I talk very openly about therapy. I talk about like sort of fixing the internal stuff that sometimes you're hardwired wrong from from childhood, from parenting, from like upbringing, and this is sort of what you're talking about. Like if you mentioned that 20 years ago, people would be looking at you like, what's wrong with you? What are you doing?
Yeah.
It was a lot more cutthroat, more macho kind of environment. And I mean, you can only think like how things must have been like, 40, 50, 60 years ago,
Right.
like they were not nice in a way when we think about it now, because we have rediscovered that as humans, we got emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
and when you work on yourself, when you work on your surroundings, like how do you perceive yourself and how do you to radiate your personality and your lack of stress in a way.
Mhm.
Your environment is acting differently because you're looking after yourself, because that's what really matters. Because mostly people try to do good jobs for their clients, and they're like, but that's kind of serving the wrong purpose. Because of course you need to take a pride in your work, you need to be able, no, you want to be the best possible designer you can be, but you need to know why you're doing it for yourself. Like you need to have that inner peace. Because the reason why I burn out, because I had so much unprocessed stuff from my childhood that I was hiding in my work. I was literally hiding in the process. I was like, it was instant gratification, because when I was growing up, nothing was ever good enough. I was a grade 8 student doing
Mhm.
maths Olympics, and it was not good enough. But from the parenting side, so I found something that would make me really happy, that I would get acceptance, appreciations, and a feedback loop, like from the industry, from the clients, in form of likes and praise, and obviously payments and more work. And that was unfortunately, my infinite loop in just working more and more and more and more. Because it's a shame we haven't seen the second book, but it starts with a sentence that creativity nearly killed me. And it
Mhm.
wasn't the creativity that nearly killed me. I nearly killed myself, because I was just buying it all. It was just like I was on that highway of life and creativity, going 100 miles an hour a second. Like it was just like it's untamed, it's unregulated. If you want to open 17 different accounts on Instagram or whatever, you can do that. You can work with as many clients, and you can take on of it. But we only got capacity as a human to process things in a very limited way, and
Mhm.
we need to take time to actually appreciate it. But the messaging nowadays, like, just do as much as you can, work all the hours and do that. And it's just like, no, don't do that. But reason why I'm saying it, like, there is, I mean, pretty much everyone's got some sort of adrenaline, dopamine, or success addiction. Because I watched a documentary about David Beckham, and yeah, he's an adrenaline addict. Basically, he needs that buzz. Like all the footballers, like they need the audience. Like we need clients and client work to give us the buzz. And I was totally I had a dopamine addiction. Like everything was, and I look, and that I can see now retrospectively. But when I was in the middle of it, I was just at work. It was a survival instinct. Whereas I didn't need to work that much and that hard.
Mhm.
But that was my sort of feedback, infinite sort of spiral. That makes sense. And that's what kind of giving me the perspective now, and saying, you know what, there's a lot of people like me in the same situation that I used to be, and they potentially could benefit from hearing this. Because when everything's said and done, and you're going to have a portfolio which is 20 years old, you're not going to look at that. You're going to say, you know what? I burn out. I did it really wrong, because I was trying to please people for reasons that could have been actually sorted by working on myself and creating better work, and actually approaching it better, and actually be more comfortable and confident with how we create this stuff. Because it's easy to get sidetracked. It's easy to let imagine like the big sort of avalanche, and you're just like, wow, just let's jump in, because everyone seems to be there, and that's so unnecessary.
Yeah, man. You touched on like the core of it, and I noticed this in myself is when and reading your stuff and hearing your talks really made me realize it was that you have to not you don't have to work on yourself before you can do your best work, but I realized that I feel the best about my career, about the work I do when I'm in when I've done the mindset work, and I feel better about myself as a whole. And even when I'm hitting walls, whether it's building a website or doing some kind of branding project, and you get to that that the part where it's hard and it's uncomfortable, you're reaching uncomfortable realms of creativity and trying to just brute force push something into existence. Like that's what discomfort is. And even when you hit those walls, if you've done the work and you feel secure in yourself, then everything goes a lot better. Like it's kind of like I'm young, I know that, but I'm trying to decipher kind of what success looks like, and I'm following the thread of creativity from the people that have already done it, and it seems like success isn't always getting the most clients. It isn't being overbooked. It's like one of those things where that's like at the forefront of my mind right now personally, and a lot of the audience as well, is growing a creative career, and that's all the allure. But when you see what sometimes can happen on the other side of that, and I think burnout is one of those things where um you don't really know your limits until you've kind of pushed up against them, and that's how you've reached the end of them. But I mean, the stuff you talk about is so important, and just kind of doing the work on yourself to know where your limits are before you get there, and just knowing that your work isn't a reflection of yourself. It's not a way to place value on yourself either. So um but yeah, super important stuff, and I really appreciate how you lay that out in the book. So, and I'm really excited to read Mindful Creative too, because I feel a strong kinship with that title. So, but one thing I wanted to ask you is, you talk a lot about making, and a lot of your ethos I get is you talk a lot about simplicity and kind of stripping back, and making things the bare minimum. um, and it's powerful. You see it in your branding, the brand new website, your social media as a whole. All of it's very effectively minimalistic, and it's recognizable to you. It's it's definitely your trademark. And as your career has progressed, as you've gone through um, being overbooked, being busy, being going through the struggles of running your agency, and now going through all these career chapters, being an author, illustrator, um, musician, everything in between. What are some of the things that as you've progressed and grown in your career and your mental health and things, that you've have found the most effective, that you strip back, and how have those changed over time?
I mean, sorry, I had to laugh because when you said everything's really simple, I mean, it's been 20 years of making things simple.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the reason why I became an illustrator is because I was overloading my designs with like extra layers and textures and shapes and stuff. And my illustrative work, if you Google like Radim Malinic illustration, you might get to see like my collage work and like my illustrations. I mean, I tried everything, and then I was always kind of scared that there was not enough, so I was adding things, adding,
Uh-huh.
and my love was for simple stuff. Like I just love, like for example, there's a Danish duo called Havas and Hannibal. There's two women, two girls from Denmark, and they just made the most beautiful, in my eyes, the simplest possible work. And like I always wanted to do stuff like that, but my insecurities were like making me to add more and more and more stuff. And
Yeah.
it's only with time and age that you get to work with people. Like, for example, I remember working with clients. They're like, we want this, like we want you to make this. I'm like, well, you can make 7 different options of this. They're like, no, you just want this option. And I'm like, it doesn't make sense, like why would you make just that one option? I'm like, I can make all the other options. I'll prove you. No, I'll prove you wrong. I can show you that the other 7 options or the 7th option I can come up with might be the best. They're like, No, we just won this one. I'm like, freaking hell! Like, why just want to like? It's like, why? And now I'm at the age. It's like I knew what these books I was making. I knew what they looked like a year ago before I was making them. It's like I knew they had to be printed neon, like they had to be printed in different colors. Like I knew the idea, but I kept validating the little detail every day for a year. So my what do you call it? Excuse me. My illustrations, like we couldn't make it work for a long time. You know, like I kind of knew what I was trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I might have a coughing fit. Look after yourself, and you know what? There was an idiot who wrote a book about it. You know, so don't do what he did. You know, like don't do that, because I wish. I mean, you know, we tell ourselves like, would you ever go back and do something differently? And I kind of wish that when the clouds were dark, when I felt like I was the loneliest person in the world, thinking I'm the only one who burns out, I'm the only one who doesn't get it right. I just wish that somebody told me like, you're okay. We're all the same. We all do the same problem. We all go the same. Everyone's got a hard day at work. Everyone burns out. Everyone cries. Everyone breaks down. You know, everyone's the same. Like it just happens to us in different, different days and different times. So it was very, very what's the word? I think that word right. It was liberating, like to share personal stories of the good, bad, the ugly, the silly, the stupid. You know, I just like, look, it's there. And sometimes, you know, you try to think like, you know, is what's too much and what's not too much. But luckily, these are my books number 5 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
So I've grown to know that I don't need to worry about every single word that I write, because I've got editors to help me to get it right, and sometimes straighten it in a position where you know, you get a feedback of somebody else, like you're collaborating. So you know, I write my sentences in my, you know, English is my second language, so you know, sometimes I just sort of mix it all up and thinking poetically, you know. They go like, no, you need to change that. So you collaborate. You know, someone helps you to straighten it up. Someone make it sort of more coherent, and then you go final product. But I'm from learning how to collaborate with people. I don't know. I overwrite, and I think I wrote 65,000 words for Creativity for Sale. We got 42,000 words in the book. And I kind of wish we had like 30,000 books, 30,000 words in the book, because I think I may have said it earlier, like I'm making books for people who like pictures.
Yeah.
You know, you create a logo book and that sells thousands because people like pictures. And you sell illustration books, it sells. And it's like, now how do I create this new category that it's kind of hyper niching into creative industry with content that potentially is applicable for everyone? But like, I just want this particular group of people to actually benefit from this and say, you know what, I can do this better for tomorrow, so I can actually enjoy the creative process rather than fighting it for reasons that could be easily avoided.
Man, yeah, I love that. I love that a lot. That's as good as reason as I need to publish 2 books. I mean, you had a message, and whether it came in 2 books, 3 books, 1 book, and you know, I had to get out there, and I'm really glad I did. But I'm first of all, I'm super grateful for your time today, man. Like ever since just growing up and you know being in my first full-time role, I've gone to really value and appreciate my time. So anytime someone like you can spare in an hour just for some measly guy like me, I really appreciate it. But I want to kind of end this off, and we'll get to sharing where people can get the book and everything like that afterwards. But I want to get to like a super quick exercise. If you were my age, I mean, we started at the same age, we kind of touched on that earlier. But if you were my age and you could give yourself any of the books that you've published so far, just give it to yourself as a 22-year-old before you started your journey, when you're first getting started, and say, here's this title along with this message, what would that look like?
Oh, that's a tight one. That's a tough one. I think Mindful Creative. I'm really proud of what I've achieved in Mindful Creative. I mean, Creativity for Sale is like a distilled version of the things that I've read lived, experienced,
Yeah.
listened to, spoken to, and it's my version of like I believe that's where you connect with yourself. So I mean, I would love to take those two books if I could take two books. Like I mean, that's the reason why they exist together. And through the process, I didn't want to jump into your question, but there is another three books that have come out of this writing process, which can follow or will follow. In fact, it'll be a book on how to launch a creative product because everyone wants to be client free at some stage. So how to do that, how to approach creativity is another book. And there's one more that kind of they help the series, like they are literally like the manual. So I just wish those books existed because that's pretty much what I was saying on social. Like I Austin Kleon says, write books you want to read. Whereas I've created books I wish that existed when I was in my early career because there was nothing like that. There was nothing about mindfulness. There was nothing about burnout. There was nothing about how to build a personal brand. Like I think the people who have started talking about personal brand 20 years ago now backtracking about like, oh, don't be a personal brand. I'm like, you know what? Brand of creativity will get you somewhere. Like you're gonna own who you are. You're gonna own yourself. You're gonna own your, oddness. If you, whoever you are, if you odd one out, celebrate it. And I pretty much spent the first 10 years of my career trying to blend in, like I'm just another one of these, I've got personal signature style, but I wanted to blend in, only to then celebrate and realize I am only me. I don't care about who else is out there in a way, because when I accept myself for who I am and what I do, then I don't get any competition. I only get peers, friends, contemporaries, that's what it is. And it's a long growing process, and that's why these books were so created, because conflicting messages, you can read whatever you read or reels you can see, and you click on one nonsensical reel and then you get 50 of those, and everyone tries to sell you a course and plan how to make 10K a month or a day or a minute. And I'm like, how about like, who are you? What do you want? Are you happy? No, are you doing the best work you can do? Because you can do it. You can actually do that. And it's, those two books are definitely the ones that I would recommend to anyone to read once a year, because you will find more inner peace really quickly. You don't, I feel like I became a better creative and better designer by becoming a more functional human, if that makes sense. I mean, as you may have picked up throughout the conversation, like it was not always sunshine and ice cream. It's never been sunshine and ice creams. It's more like, okay, how do we get through this stuff? Like, how do we make more compassionate work? How we understand our clients more? How do we, take failure? How do we take feedback to heart? With dealing with it, because we all want to learn how not to feel bad. We all be like, I only want to feel happy and okay. Whereas we need to learn how to feel okay, not feeling okay. Like we need to understand is like, okay, this is a passing moment. This is a situation that's happened, and tomorrow we'll be back to normal. Like we just need to recover. So like if you go for a run, or if you, cycle or lift weights, you're not gonna be feeling okay because you're gonna strain, and after that strain, you're gonna hurt. But it's like the more you exercise, the quicker you go back to your baseline. And that's the key. Like, things are all right. Like when you accept it, when you learn to do it, and you don't get sort of too off course, or then don't get too derailed, then that's what it's all about. Just accepting that there's elements in your work that sometimes will make you feel like shit, and sometimes you'll feel like like the winner of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, love that, man. Seriously, yeah, you're the man. I'm really grateful you came on the show today, and like I said, I'm just gratitude is one word that comes to my mind. The way that you're very open, the way that you share everything that you've done, and the way that you put that in these books, and I feel lucky to just have it in my hands. So,
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you again for coming on. Where can people get it? Where can people find it?
I mean, if people in America listen to this, Amazon or any book website, I mean, wherever you can get it. Unfortunately, they have to be imported. You can buy them directly from my store, which is novemberuniverse.co.uk, and we do FedEx and direct shipping. And if you order from my store, you get a signed copy by default. So I've signed hundreds of copies, which are in a warehouse in a special pile on their own. And they just get quietly sent to every order as a signed copy. But we've got audiobook, we've got ebooks, which are quite popular with design crowd. Ebooks. No one said. Everyone before was like, no one's going to buy ebook, and yeah, they're popular. So yeah, I mean, Google, you find if you want electronic copy, but 100% recommend come on my website, get a physical book, because it's going to look good in your house, it's going to smell good, and you will never want to pass it on, because it's just they're just different books. As you know, like they're printed in. They're not black and white. They're colorful. They're positive. They're about something that The reason why I wanted to have a conversation with you, because it's nice to have that way of actually passing it back on. Actually sort of passing it on and paying it forward. Because I remember going to talks and listening to interviews with the people who were my age when I was your age, and it was just full of ego and full of bravado and sort of. I don't know, like we call it pissing up the wall, it's just like who can piss higher kind of thing. Like, it was just, I don't know, it was just never, inspiring in a way. Like, luckily the medium of creativity was strong enough that, it inspired people to do stuff. But I think having these honest conversations, let's call it like from one generation to another, I think it should unlock stuff and help, I think, future generation to make those mistakes that everyone has to make, because you will not go make everything 100%. But it's that knowledge of like, okay, you know what, I've messed up and I know it's okay. Like the world's not gonna end. Everything, I will be still in business, everything will be fine. And that's what we spend lots of time thinking that's going to happen to us. So it's about just unlocking that knowledge. Because yes, I would love to tell you that if you ask me for advice and you say, should I go left or should I go right? No, I will tell you go right, because I've been left and that didn't work. Of course you'll go left. You want to find out for yourself. You're going to do it on your own. But when you come back and say, oh, I should have gone this way, you will know it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to do and work it out for yourself. Because if we all follow just easy answers, then we'll never learn. So we need that friction. We need that problem solving. This is what makes us stronger. This is what makes us better. So, having burnout and having, done all sorts of crazy things and, nearly breaking myself, I needed to do this. But I wish that there was a sign somewhere saying, that's okay. You will recover, because I thought there was no way back. And I think that's the most important message. Like, you are never alone.
Yeah, and you're that sign for other people now, myself included. But man, I was a fan before I read the book. I was an even bigger fan after, and if possible, I'm an even bigger fan now that I've gotten to know you a little bit. So we'll have the book and all your socials and brand new and everything linked in the show notes. So we'll let you know, when the content comes out. But I can't wait to get to listen to this back and taking notes just like I did on the book, and get into the next one as well, Mindful Creative. So thank you again for coming on, man, and I'm super grateful. And you're the man. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry for my cold. It's just annoying.
We have the magic of editing, man. Colds don't exist anymore.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.